Happy 4th of July to all of my fellow Americans, and to everyone else, happy Tuesday. Chris Baker here, and today I'm going to look at the first ever Captain America game, at least the first one ever released in the United States. Believe it or not, Europe got a Captain America game before we did. Go figure. And since I know a lot of you subscribe to me because of SpiderMan, it's his first team-up game. The Amazing Spider-Man and Captain America in Dr. Doom's Revenge. A title from an age when we were okay with games only being 23 minutes long. Thanks to World of Long Plays for allowing for this entire thing to happen, because I'm not going to record this whole thing myself, no way. I'm just going to sit here and give some feedback on this game as though it were something I would have managed at my time in Marvel when I worked on 5 Spider-Man games, a Captain America game, and a bunch of other titles you may or may not have played. You probably noticed the comic book panels that led into this particular level. This may have been the first game to ever do anything like that in such a comic book style, and I think that's pretty cool. What's not quite as cool is the fact that Cap's first fight is with generic robot. He looks more like a reject from the Black Hole than he does a protector of Castle Doomstot. They could have at least just called him a Doombot. Anyway, here we see more panels filling in on this comic page. A burst of fire enters the room, and that sets up our first superhero challenge. Does any of this look a little familiar to you? Let's add some sound effects. 'Cause, oh yeah, there are none. Yeah, that's more like it. But I'm kind of tired of putting those in there, so... Anyway, my last observation about this particular section, that's a lot of people that Dr. Doom killed. I mean, I know he's bad and all, but man... I wonder if the citizens of Latveria realize just how much of their tax dollars goes toward shackles. I would have definitely asked for a source of these fireballs. I don't know, maybe Crossbones has a flamethrower or something. Oh wait, he doesn't exist yet. But hey, Electro is in this game. Set him up a bit, have him throw some lightning bolts instead of these fireballs. Beat the crap out of him later. You know what? Screw it. Let's just do some fan fiction. Meanwhile, Spidey looks for a way in. Oh hey, it's another robot. And man, those electronics must be really susceptible to webbing. This guy went down quick. On to the next panels, and uh-oh, Machete is lurking. Who? You know, Machete. No, not that Machete. I'm talking about the one from Captain America comics from the 1980s. It's pretty fair to say that Captain America's Rogues Gallery is kind of weak, but they could have done way better than Machete. But at the same time, I can kind of see what they were going for, because Machete actually was a pretty relevant character in Captain America comics at the time. As much as I would have preferred to see a Baron Zemo or an Arnim Zola or someone like that, I get it. What I don't get is why he's fighting Spider-Man instead of Captain America. That's not the only time during the course of this game we'll see a mismatch like that. And hold on, I'm not done nitpicking Machete yet. I mean, I know those are knives that he's twirling, but if you had told me they're bowling balls that he's throwing, I'd have believed you. And I feel like Spider-Man's wall crawling in this game is completely wasted. It pretty much is just a way not to get hit. And there's no web slinging at all. Kind of a waste of the character's abilities, unfortunately. Let's move on. Remember those mismatches I was talking about? My first reaction to seeing Rhino in action here was just that he looks kinda dumb with bracelets on his ankles and his arms. But I went back and looked, and hey, that was his 1980s look. We all have our fashion low points, I guess. But the bigger issue is actually just how he's fighting. He's not fighting like Rhino. He's basically just walking up to Captain America and trying to get some hits in. Occasionally he's going to do his charge, but that's what he should be doing all the time, because that's what Rhino does. He charges like a rhino. At first I thought their scale was a bit off, but it turns out that Rhino is only 6'5", and Captain America is 6'2". This is straight out of the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Still, I do think Rhino could have been beefier to show a little bit more of his 710 pounds. Also from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. You know, if you bought this game back in 1989, there was actually a bit of a backstory of how Rhino and all the other bad guys were gathered here. Dr. Doom was responsible for it all. It came with an exclusive comic by SpiderMan editor Danny Fingerton and penciler Rich Buckler. Doom dubbed this team of supervillains his Doom's Brigade. And it just so happens that it's all made up of Captain America and Spider-Man villains, even though he had no idea that Captain America and Spider-Man would be teaming up to stop his evil schemes in Latveria. The comic basically highlights how Captain America and Spider-Man were brought together. I particularly enjoy the part where Spider-Man is very much in awe of Captain America's laptop. And then we see how they infiltrate Latveria, which involves a bunch of CDs labeled rock. And this right here is the last panel of the whole thing. Dr. Doom saying a very Dr. Doom thing. I've got to say, Rhino's got a pretty nicely defined butt right there. He must work out. So now it's Cap's turn to fight Zarin. What Zarin lacks in fashion sense, he makes up for in his mastery of weapons. So why isn't he actually really using a weapon right here? I mean, I guess that red thing might be a dagger, but just look on the wall. There's a huge sword, there's an axe. He could use both of those and they would be way more cool in this situation. Why isn't he doing that? In fact, he's mostly just punching. Why bother with years and years of training to master all sorts of weaponry if you're just going to use your fists? So now we see that Cap faces Batroc, his arch nemesis. Okay, that's just wrong. His arch nemesis is the Red Skull. Batroc's up there, but he's no Red Skull. He's also not near as cool as the Red Skull is. At least not in the comics. In the movies, he was pretty awesome. You might remember him from the beginning of The Winter Soldier, when he really didn't look like his comic book counterpart at all. One thing he did a lot of in the movies was leap, because he's also known as Batroc the Leaper. Or, as the comics often spell out phonetically, Batroc de Leper. He's French. So here he is fighting Cap, and what is he not really doing so much? Leaping. Batroc the Leaper is more like Batroc the jump up and downer at times. He's certainly not Batroc the Puncher, which is why he's getting the crap beat out of him by Cap right now. And speaking of Cap, one little costume nitpick, he should have a star on his back. Well, at least they bothered to put it in there in the comic book cutscenes. So next up we have Eduardo Lobo. It specifically says Eduardo Lobo, and that's important, because there are two Lobo brothers. These guys are Spider-Man villains, but they're so secondary that they never actually made it to the core Amazing Spider-Man book. They were only ever in Web of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. And they're just a pair of mutant werewolves, because why not? So in this image, you see that one has brown fur and one has black fur. But wouldn't you know it, Eduardo is the one with black fur. So in the game, he should have black fur, not brown fur. You're actually fighting Carlos Lobo here. I must say though, I do enjoy the set dressing here. I like how Dr. Doom has a couple of extra masks just in his library, as well as a crystal ball. And once again, a very well-defined buttocks on a defeated supervillain. And now it's time for Spidey's first superhero challenge. Spidey? Where are you, buddy? Come on. Show up. You coming? This is your game. Oh, there you are. There you are. Protect that package. Yeah, your hands are in just the right place there, Spidey. You know it's important. Not a whole lot more to say here, but it would have been a great spot for some web slinging that we don't get in this entire game. This just keeps going and going, so let's skip ahead. Boomerang throws Spidey a curve. That baseball metaphor may seem a little out of place, but Frederick Myers actually was a baseball player before he turned to a life of crime after taking bribes. You know, it's your classic story of throwing fastballs, then throwing boomerangs for a living. And that's pretty much his thing, throwing boomerangs. He throws two right here. I guess compared to the other characters in this game, that's an improvement. But really, he should just be staying back, throwing boomerangs, not punching at Spidey. What an idiot. And now for some reason, we're in caves. This, bud, is for you! Because Captain America sure does love taunting enemies with beer commercials. And the unfortunate supervillain having a shield thrown at his head right now is Rattan. Never heard of Rattan? That's because they created him just for this game. If you don't know what that means, Rattan, the dictionary defines it as the thin, pliable stems of a palm used to make furniture. They're basically Rattan's weapons. So instead of swords or something cool, he fights with sticks used to make chairs. I think my favorite thing about Rattan is just how little anyone actually cared about him. He actually has a full bio in the manual for this game, and it says his hair is black. In the game, though, his hair is brown, and in the comic adaptation, his hair is blonde. You know, pick one. Incidentally, there's a good bit more about Rattan and a bunch of other cool trivia about retro superhero games in my book. Wrong! Retro games, you messed up our comic book heroes. Sorry, that just seemed like a really good place for a plug. And here we have another superhero challenge. This time, Captain America is dodging bats. Let's just move on to the next thing. He's still in the cave, and here comes Electro. Don't look so shocked, Cap. I get it, shocked because he's Electro and he shocks things. Well, Cap's about to show him what's what. Believe it or not, that awesome pun actually did make it into SpiderMan Shattered Dimensions, courtesy of me. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. And good on you, Electro, for throwing lightning bolts, at least some of the time. I'd rather you were fighting Spider-Man here right now, but hey, at least you're fighting like you actually fight. Wait a second, this doesn't seem right. It's an actual cool and relevant supervillain about to fight his actual hero that he's most associated with. Go get him, Spidey! Well, I guess we're in Doom's generic robot factory right here, but it's really cool that Hobgoblin is on a goblin glider throwing pumpkin bombs. I'm really happy to see that. Makes me really want a modern version in the Spider-Man PS4 game. At first I thought maybe they were justifying the existence of Grey Gargoyle in this game because he had ins with Batroc because they're both French. But just a few years earlier in Marvel Fanfare number 22, Grey Gargoyle actually teamed up with Electro, Dr. Octopus, and Sandman, Spider-Man villains, to escape prison. So I guess it kinda makes sense that he's fighting Spider-Man right here. But check out how close he is to Spider-Man this entire time and how Spider-Man is not turning to stone. Grey Gargoyle's whole thing is that he turns you to stone if he touches you. And if that can't happen in your game, why include him? Also, dude, where's your cape? Does Dr. Doom only allow him to be the one wearing a cape in Castle Doomstadt or something? Oh, Hulk, you've come to help stop the missile. That's great! Wait a second, you just did the evil laugh. The one that sounds like Nelson from The Simpsons if he were a supervillain. Ah, crap, the Hulk is attacking us. Okay, there is an actual story reason for this, believe it or not, and we'll get to that in a second. But here's something I kinda don't get. Comic book Hulk has a very iconic look, and that includes purple pants. Brown pants are fine, you can use them in the Avengers movie or whatever, but in a comic book game, I want purple pants on my Hulk. But then again, this wasn't really the Hulk, it was just, I guess, a robot that Mysterio made. Kind of a cop-out, but it was an interesting story twist, all things considered in this game. Okay, now this guy, this is Oddball. He is so lame. He's a juggler, you know, naturally he's part of a whole crime troupe of jugglers. And he throws balls at you. Sometimes they have gimmicks like explosions and whatnot, but really, Oddball just throws balls at you. He's also more of a Hawkeye villain, but he did have one run-in with Cap shortly before this game. Lame as he is, I gotta say the developers completely captured Oddball. All the juggling, all the leaping, all the throwing balls at Captain America, it's like they had the most affinity for this character of all the other ones in the game. And is this the first ever evil juggler in video games? I'm gonna say it is. Doom must be near. But of course, before we get to him, it's another superhero challenge that goes on way too long. What are these? Floating eyeballs? I don't know. We're just gonna skip ahead a few minutes to the game's climactic battle. Your petty patriotism is no match for my power. Prepare to die! Now, I don't need to tell you that Dr. Doom is an awesome villain, and they actually treat him mostly with respect here. But as I point out in my book, what's the deal with his weapon? He should be using something like a laser pistol, not a revolver from Gunsmoke. But for the most part, they handle him really well. Oh wait, this part isn't handled so well. And then he's defeated, and he turns into Phanto from Super Mario Bros. 2? I don't get that. Anyway, you win! Congratulations! The game rediscovers that it has musical capabilities, and we get some oddly placed explanation about Mysterio creating the Hulk 2 battles ago. Never mind the fact that the game leaves the hyphen out of Spider-Man. Unless Mysterio really is saying Spiderman here. Your congratulatory screen is appropriately patriotic. Thanks, George. I hope you enjoyed that delve into superhero gaming obscurity. If so, then check out my book, Wrong, Retro Games You Messed Up Our Comic Book Heroes, and also check out my other videos. I promise the next one's gonna be a little more current. Get it, Electro? Current?